Fandoms here, we share the love. Every topic you're dreaming of. Join the chat, let's fan away. This is Fandoms, come and stay.
You're listening to Fandoms. Today on the show, we'll be talking to Danielle about A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Welcome to the show, Danielle.
Thank you.
So, can you tell me a bit about how you first got into the series?
So my best friend started reading the series like just about a year ago, and she was, I guess, halfway through it and was really into it. So that sparked my interest enough to pick it up. I'd heard of it. I've heard a lot of people talk about it for years now. Obviously, it's been around for quite a while. But I just never was that inclined to pick it up. And, you know, the best friend recommendation did the trick.
Were the things you heard about it before it was recommended, were they mostly positive or negative?
They were extremely positive. Everybody that that had ever mentioned it in passing to me did so with like obsession, like just absolutely loved the series. And I just kind of thought like, oh, this is probably overhyped. And I didn't think I had that much time to get invested into a series. Akatar brought my reading habit back full force, which I've heard has been the case for a lot of people. So I guess that's kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's awesome when you can find that series that sparks that love for reading again. That happened to me with Brandon Sanderson's books there. I got hooked on Mistborn, and then I was just all in, and it got me back into reading, which has been nice.
Yeah, Sanderson's awesome.
Been binging a lot of audiobooks too, like that. I went from like podcasts to audiobooks, and it's been a bit of an addiction.
Nice.
What do you think it was about the series that really first drew you in?
Well, I've always loved fantasy series. Like I grew up, reading Harry Potter and then Twilight and Divergent and all those kind of things. I love fantasy books. I love being swept away into like a magical world, especially if there's like magical powers. I'm in. So right away, it was a story that I felt was really approachable. But I'm not going to lie, the romance definitely hooked me in. This is the first like romantasy book series I've ever read.
I've heard that for a lot of people with this.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect. And it was a lot milder than I was expecting. People kind of like talk about that being the main part of it, and it's really not. But it definitely like sucked me in to like want to like learn about these relationships more and the intrigue behind them.
Yeah, it's wild how just because it's aimed at like females, all of a sudden like having sex scenes, like people start calling it smut and stuff, but they don't label that kind of thing like for Game of Thrones or The First Law or any other series where there's like graphic sex scenes.
It's super interesting, and I've heard it's kind of like, books like not Game of Thrones, books like Akatar and other, like, this has been like a gateway drug for me into the romantasy genre, which is mostly written by female authors. And what you have is like sex scenes that are centered around like the woman's experience and like her pleasure versus like, a song of, oh my God, I'm forgetting the title.
Song of Ice and Fire.
There you go. I
had to think about it too for a second. It's so like just Game of Thrones in the pop culture now that like it makes me second guess it.
And it has so much sex in it. And don't get me wrong, very sexy stuff, but a lot of that sex is like begrudgingly done for the female participant, and it's not about like an equal relationship or like finding pleasure. It's like a power thing. And so I think it's really interesting that romantasy books that are like, hey, let's focus on the woman's experience here are labeled as like smut and, derogatory.
I'm not going to lie. Like I find 90% of male writers, when they write sex scenes, I don't enjoy them and I feel off put, and it feels almost like creepy wish fulfillment for me. And then I feel like when like I felt that way with some female authors as well, but like a lot of the female writing I've seen, it feels more artistic and emotional and stuff, and it feels less like grimy. And like, I think the only man I think has written sex scenes that I enjoy more than a woman's ones I've written is Joe Abercrombie, but not because they're sexy. Because
Mhm.
like the first one I went in, I was like, oh God, like this is abrupt and stuff. And then he prejaculates and it's embarrassing and it plays into the story. And I was like, okay, so they didn't just have sex because the writer wanted to have them hook up and be a thing. It's being relevant to the story. I was like, that's how you use it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I like that. I like that it's not just like this instant gratification or this power thing. I think also a good point about like Akatar and the romanticides that are written by women is that the male characters in these stories, they really are a fantasy. Like, so their perspective, if you get in their head, you know, like they're driven by their like obsessive lust for the female character. And it's just like all about her. It's really not about their gratification. And of course, sex should be like a two-way street. It should be about everybody's gratification. And they get theirs too. But I think like that's sort of the fantasy that romantasy plays up, is that like these men are they just want to please these women so much.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think it's the husband fantasy there, and like where it's like they want that man who's gonna be the perfect husband and step up and feel like that their life is taking care of them.
Right. The ultimate
Yeah,
provider.
yeah, exactly. That's what I was searching for. If you had to sell me on the series without spoiling anything, what would your sales pitch for me be?
Okay. Well, what I really like about this series, and I can compare it now because I've read a bunch of like romanticides since, Akatar is really so much more than like a romance story. It really is a fantasy novel at heart. You know, there's curses and magic and political drama and crazy adventures and magical fights and duels and things like that. And it's really an adventure story first and foremost, I think, with like the little added bonus of having the love story tied throughout it. And yeah, I think it's just a really fun ride. Like for me, from the first book, I think everyone says is like a little slower than all the rest. You know, it's kind of introducing you to the world and setting everything up. But once things pick up, I just couldn't put it down. I read the whole series in 2 weeks and I just needed to kind of keep turning page after page and find out what was going to happen next.
I honestly love when a book doesn't grab me at first, but then has a hook partway in, and then I go back
Yeah.
and restart it, and then all of a sudden I have like this incentive to like read it closer, and like I usually do end up really enjoying it, and I'm usually really confused as being like, why did I hate this at first? And I think it's a part of like a lot of stories where like you're trying to figure out what exactly is going on, and then once it clicks, you're like all in. Like Stormlight Archive was like that for me. I started with the audiobook and I was listening to it at the gym like a million times and I just wasn't feeling it. And I couldn't follow what was going on. And then one action scene was really good. And then I just became really invested in that one character and like what's going to happen to him. And so I ended up going back just to listen to his chapters at first. And then I realized, oh my God, there's so much more going on here if I actually pay attention and listen.
Yes, absolutely. Like in the first book for Akatar, you're in this world through the eyes of Feyre Archeron, who's like this 19-year-old human, and her life is miserable. And I feel like that's like a really common thing in fantasy stories. Like the protagonist who we meet, who we're going to take through the story, like they have a shitty life to begin with, because then the fantasy story is going to like take them on this epic journey, right? And maybe with the exception of like Frodo, who had like a really peaceful life. But yeah, you follow Feyre, and she's a really combative character and really hard to like for like the first at least third of the book. So you're reading this and you're like, oh, come on, girl, just like get on board with like this fairy world. Like you want her to just embrace it. And, for lots of reasons that are very understandable, it takes her a while to warm to it. But then there's these moments that she has where she has to survive like against these dangerous fairies. And you can see like her survival skills and her instincts and her character come out. And you're like, oh, okay. Now I can kind of get behind you. I can cheer for you because like, you're not just a bratty teenage human who's complaining through the story. You're like, you're a badass and that's coming out now. And I want to like follow you and see what you're going to do.
Yeah, I really think Sarah J. Maas's strength is writing really fickle characters who you grow to love.
Yes.
I haven't actually read the series. I am going to say that now. I'm planning on starting the audiobooks with my girlfriend in a couple days. My experience with it more is from I stumbled upon Carrie Can Read's ACOTAR breakdown, and at first I was just like kind of curious because I had heard of A Court of Thorns and Roses as like this big huge smut novel on TikTok and stuff, and that was my only experience was I just heard that it was total smut. And so the video came on autoplay because I go for a lot of book recommendations and stuff like that, and I just kind of started. I was like, well, I'll give it a listen, see what the beginning's about, and see if like it's something I'm into. And like, it sounded like an action fairy tale almost is the best way I think I could like describe it in 2 words. Like, it felt like the setup was like a classic fairy tale, and then it built into a modern fantasy story. And I found that really interesting. And she skipped over a lot of the like romance scenes and stuff like that. She didn't go into detail on them, so I can't really speak on any of that stuff. But as far as Court of Thorns and Roses goes, I have read some like quotes and stuff out of it for a trivia podcast I'm working on and stuff. So I do know some stuff more than the thing, but mostly just secondhand knowledge at this point.
Yeah, no, but I think that's a spot on assessment, like this modern day fairy tale adventure story. That's really it. And it's kind of a shame that it gets this reputation as being this like insanely smutty series, because that was my impression too. My best friend started reading it and she was telling me how into it she was. I was surprised because that wasn't like, I just didn't know her to read a lot of smut. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was just like, really? You're into it? Like, maybe I'll check it out. And as I was reading it, I kept texting her like, all right, but when are they going to get naked? Like, when are they going to make out? Like, why is it taking so long? I thought that's what this whole story was about. And it really isn't a big part, especially in the first book. Somebody out there has done the math on it and found that like, really, there's only like 2% of the first book that has any like even kissing, and then even more intimate scenes beyond that. And the last book of the series, which I think is kind of considered to be the smuttiest, with the most smut scenes in it, it's still only like 5% of the entire book. So it's a shame that's like the reputation that overshadows it, because it's really so much more than that.
Yeah, it's like I was saying before, how they just label a lot of the female written romantasy stuff as smut. And I think Book Talk and BookTube and all that stuff, y'all need to stop being such prudes and just let people like express sex and stuff. It happens in real life. And like, honestly, like most stories with fairy lore, fairies are over sexual creatures because they're usually based off like inhibitions, and like they're not human beings. They're forces of nature, more animalistic and stuff like that. Like they don't have the impulse control. So like it's her adaptation of that kind of fairy lore. Like they might all be a little hornier than your average person, but like it's really not that extreme from what I understand.
Yeah. And I think the way she does it is it's really good. Not just like the sex scenes and things like that, but like you said, the way that fairies are portrayed, it's like a very heightened emotional state. They feel everything so intensely. You see it a lot, like, they have these, you get a lot of like growling in the book because they wear their anger like right on their sleeves.
And that's such a cool interpretation because like I've read other stories where they make fairies who they just do not understand emotion in any way, shape, or form. Like, even if they do express it themselves because they're not mortal, they're beyond us. They don't like understand us. And
Yeah.
all those kind of things. I love seeing new interpretations of all that kind of stuff. Like, I've been hooked on Dresden Files the last while, and the fairy lore in that was kind of what made me decide. I was like, okay, I need to give ACOTAR a real listen to. That and talking to all you fans on Reddit and on this podcast. It's been real cool. You guys have done a great job convincing me because I already bought the audiobook.
It's definitely worth the read. It's a really fun ride.
Yeah, I was pretty pumped when my girlfriend was like, oh, I'll listen to that with you and shit. And I was like, deadly. It'd be a lot better to listen to it with someone than to sit there and listen to it alone, especially if I'm sitting there listening to it alone and sure to walk in at just one of the sex scenes. Oh, that would it'd be a little embarrassing. There was one book I did download that we were listening to in the bath one time that I didn't realize was like a very smutty romantasy book, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was weird as shit. It was like a necromancer romantasy book, like
Oh, wow.
yeah. So I guess it was kind of aimed at people with a necrophilia fetish, but I definitely learned to look at the genres on Audible other than just check the fantasy section.
That's really funny.
Yeah, she looked at me like, "What what did you download for us?" And
Is this what you're into?
Yeah, and I was just like, I don't know. And the first time I put it on and I fell asleep right away. And she woke up to a sex scene in it and stuff and was like, what are you listening to? And she didn't tell me.
Oh, man.
So like I put it on again, not knowing, and she knew. And then she kind of just looked at me and was like, what is this? And I was like, let's see. I got it for free, so luckily I didn't pay.
There's now, like I said, ACOTAR has kind of been like my gateway drug into the world of romantasy, and there is a lot of colorful things out there.
Have you checked out Fourth Wing at all?
No, it's on my list. I haven't yet because I know it's another unfinished series, and so I'm trying to kind of read things that have already come to a conclusion because I'm a really fast reader. Like I said, I read the ACOTAR books in 2 weeks, and now ever since that kind of reignited my love for reading, I'm reading like a book every like couple of days. So I'm like, let me not burn through a series that's going to give me a cliffhanger for years to come just yet. I'll get there eventually for sure because I've heard great things about Fourth Wing.
Yeah, Stormlight Archive is doing that to me right now. Like, I waited so long for book 5, and honestly, it's the first time I've been like into a series really as it's releasing. And so other than like things I started and then have now caught up on and I'm waiting on, but it was my first one where I had to wait for a book really, and between 4 and 5 there was just so much time, and I spent so much time online with fan speculation and stuff, and so many people were wrong, and then I ended up guessing a couple things really accurately that I did not think were going to happen. I was like, oh, these might happen, but like, I hope not. And then it all did, and I was like, ugh. Is it because I had all this time to wait that I didn't like the book, or is it the book itself? And I'm a little like, I need to give it another shot, I think, and go back to it another time in the future. But
it's tough when there's all that build up on it. And yeah. I can see that like in the ACOTAR community on Reddit, like everyone's kind of going a little stir crazy with theories and frustrations too, waiting for the next book. You know, everyone's getting impatient, but I'm lucky. I just picked up the series within the last year. So my patience is still a pretty full well because I haven't been waiting like 6 years like some of these people have.
Yeah, I find it so wild because like I was part of all these Stormlight Archive chats and they were all doing these crazy wild fan theories, and I was like, man, these people are so well versed in the book, they know like every detail. I'm like, this is crazy. And then I'm like, I love the series, but like I'm definitely like a surface level fan. Like YouTube videos are as far as I go with it and stuff, and podcasts. And so like when like everything I guessed kind of started coming true, I was just like, oh, I was like, I was like, what? Did I waste my time like looking into all
Mm.
these theories and stuff? Am I like should I just be surface level reading these books? Is kind of a bit how I felt. I don't know.
Your intuition is too strong.
Yeah, I don't know. The kid becoming an adult and being a thing. Oh, I can't spoil stuff, but like I was just, like that level of accuracy. I was like bullshit where it's like, oh, if this magic does this and this and this very specific scenario, then this could lead to this. And then I was like,
It makes you wonder if the authors are like on these fan sites, like, ooh, that's a good idea.
yeah, sometimes, yeah. No, I hope not, because I want their vision. I don't want them to
Yeah,
be influenced by the fans. Like,
I agree.
scary thought.
It can be disappointing when you can tell something's been influenced like by the fans, like Game of Thrones. Like he didn't finish the books, and then the HBO series had to come to a
Yes.
conclusion, and things played out probably different than they would have if he had finished the books.
I don't know if you're an anime person at all, but like One Piece, the big most
Mm.
popular one right now, it's like
I know of
the
it.
creator came out and said he hated fan theory videos in an interview. And I guess like the big guy like in Japan who did videos quit or something. I don't know all the details. I just seen like a news
Wow.
article the other day because I get a lot of fan based stuff because of this show.
Sure.
Even if I don't like particularly follow things. I end up with a lot of random knowledge. Yeah, so I was kind of like, man, is it because like he's scared he can't live up to the theories, or is it because he's scared they're going to influence his writing? And
Right. And how can they not? Like if you're exposed to stuff, it's even if you're like, no, I hate that idea. Like it's got to have some, it plants a seed in your mind.
yeah, definitely. So we got a little bit off topic there, but my next question here for you is straight from your fandom itself. They wanted me to ask you, who is your preferred character, Feyre or Nesta? And sorry, if I say Nessa at all in anything where I'm asking a question, because apparently it auto-corrected Nesta to Nessa every time. So I have to deal with that.
Well, you got it right. It's Nesta. It's a tough question because they're both phenomenal characters, and the last book is Nesta's story, so you learn a lot more about her, and she's a total badass. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to choose Feyre. She's the OG. She's the one that we are introduced to this world through her eyes, and we follow her first person perspective for the first 3 books. And I just, like I said in the beginning, she's kind of hard to love. But then as soon as it kind of broke that barrier for me where I found her to be like a lovable, relatable character, I was just all in on Feyre. I'm just like, I think she's just a total badass. Like she's the savior character, right? And she's really strong, and she never backs down from a fight. And I mean, you could say very similar things about Nesta, but if we have to choose a side, even though they're both amazing, I'm going to choose Feyre.
Yeah, that's wild. I have so many people I've talked to have said Feyre so far that I think when these ACOTAR episodes come up, as well as my other podcast where there's going to be a trivia contest between 2 ACOTAR fans, I'll put up a poll on Instagram of Feyre or Nesta, and we'll see which side steps up first. Because so far, all the Feyre fans are the ones who've been vocal.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting because I've seen a lot of backlash on Feyre. Like after 3 books, people were tired of like her perspective, and then Nesta was the last book. So there's been like a huge surge of appreciation for that character. But I'm glad to know Feyre's still pulling strong.
So if not Feyre, who's your favorite character in the series?
I'm going to be really basic right now and say it's Rhysand. He's we're not, can we talk about spoilers? The series has been out for a long time.
Oh yeah. At this point in the show, we'll just, this is your spoiler warning. If you are not a ACOTAR fan, I would turn back now because from this point on, Danielle can say whatever the hell she wants about the series, and I don't mind because I'm pretty much caught up as because of the Carrie Can Reads videos. So
Yeah.
you're not going to be spoiling
Okay,
nothing for me.
cool. Cool. Yeah. So Rhysand, like he's the main love interest, which is a huge twist for the
Right?
second book. Huge epic twist. And I mean, it's just, I know there's a lot of controversy around his character in the fandom, but for me personally, it's impossible not to love him. This character is written to be fallen in love with. Like he's put on the page so that you swoon over him every time he's on the page. So call me basic, but it did it for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think mine, honestly, I don't know why, but I'm the most intrigued by Elaine.
She's super interesting. Like she has interesting potential. She hasn't been that interesting yet, but I think like with her seer abilities, I want to know so much more about that.
I think that's what draws me in is the fact that like I'm intrigued by her and like as soon as they got to her kind of being involved with the cauldron and everything, if I'm not remembering things wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and I was just so intrigued what they were going to do with her. And I normally hate love triangles, but I was really fascinated by the whole like aspect of like her like destined mate or like the person who she's like more vibing with kind of deal. That was it felt very like fairy to me. Like it felt natural to the story and the lore and like it just fit. That part interests me too. Like I'm just very interested in her story in general, I guess.
No, I think you're right. I think Elaine is, people look over her really easily just because she hasn't been the focus. But when you look at the things we've seen from her over the story, I mean, she is the one, spoiler alert, who actually killed the King of Highburn. You know, she's the one who showed up and shoved the sword in his throat, and Nesta finished him off, but she was the one who made that possible. And then her attraction to Asriel. And in the fifth book, we see some like fire in her personality when she kind of confronts her sisters for the first time and sort of fights back and stands up for herself. And it makes you wonder like, oh, is this sweet, flowery, wallflower, Elaine, who we've been told is like the innocent one, like maybe she's got a lot more fire in her than other people think.
Yeah, definitely. It's cool how all the sisters have like very similar traits in some ways where it's like realistic, where it's like they're raised in the same house, in the same family, but they're also their own unique characters at the same time.
For sure. I think a lot of people get, that whole Nesta versus favorite question, but I do really have a hard time choosing a favorite because they really are so similar as much as they are different as well.
Yeah, it's more about how they acted with before the events of the story that really separate them, how they dealt with the traumas and everything of having a shitty dad and their situation in life. And like other than that, they're very similar people. It seems like it's more their coping skills and like that kind of stuff that differentiate them and turn them into who they are.
Absolutely, I agree.
So, which one is your favorite book in the series? And which one is your least favorite?
Okay, so the second book, A Court of Mist and Fury, might very well be like my favorite book of all time right now. But I get really torn about favorites in this series because the third book, A Court of Wings and Ruin, is phenomenal. So they're really kind of neck and neck for me. If I'm more in the mood for like the high of the romance story, it's A Court of Mist and Fury, the second book, 100%. That is like the most epic love story I've ever read. And if I'm more in the mood for like that fairy tale fantasy adventure, then it's got to be the third book because it's the war. It's like everything that's been building up to, and the plot is incredible.
I'm excited to get your response to the review I picked then because it just so happens that the review I picked for you to react to at the end is from A Court of Mist and Fury.
Ah. Okay, awesome.
So, other than the fact that people tend to refer to it as smut, are there any other misconceptions about the series that people on the outside tend to have? Or maybe about the fan base?
I think that's the number one for sure. Like that we're all just a bunch of like horny ladies reading fairy smut.
Or lonely
And it's
housewives?
yeah, yeah, and it's obviously, like I said, it's just such a small percentage of the book, so it's a much bigger story than that. I guess misconceptions about the fan base. I I don't know that I can think of really any other generalizations that people make about it. Yeah, no, I think that's the one.
Yeah, I haven't really heard much else, but the only thing I found that when I was looking online is there's a lot of people who just like claim that women can't write fantasy. And I'm like, but then
Mm.
there's Robin Hobb and all these other people who you guys are saying is an amazing author. I was like, you can't generalize like that just because you don't like the fact that it's female centered fantasy romance.
It's that surprises me because I've read a lot of fantasy, male and female authors, and Sarah J. Maas. I think it's one of the better written, series that I've read. Maybe that's like partly because there is a lot of trash out there
Yeah.
also. I'm not gonna lie, I've read trashy fantasy stories. I've read books that I couldn't quite get through or had to like grimace to get through because I'm stubborn like that and I really want to finish what I started.
Yeah, the
um
article I was talking about specifically, I can't remember what website it was from off the top of my head, but they were comparing her to like Stephanie Myers and stuff like that, and saying
oh
that like
gosh.
that was the level of Sarah J. Maas's writing. I was like, that is like wildly inaccurate because
Yeah,
I haven't read the books, but I've definitely like I've heard snippets from it and stuff, and it does not sound like 50 Shades of Grey or Twilight level of
Yeah.
writing.
So I read Twilight when I was in college. It had come out a few years earlier and I had resisted the temptation because it sounded really dumb. And then I finally read it and it was pretty dumb, but it was also one of those like, okay, I could get into this. Like I could dumb down myself a little bit to enjoy this because it's fun, vampires and werewolves and romance and absurdity but the writing itself, the quality of the writing of Stephanie Meyer, no, it doesn't hold a candle to Sarah J. Maas or any of the other like more prominent fantasy writers from around that time. It is definitely poorly written.
Yeah, I really never found like Twilight was my thing. I enjoyed the movies enough, and I never got into the books in high school because of like the whole stigma for boys, where it was like,
Sure.
yeah, so I was never going to be caught dead with a Twilight book at 14, 15. And so for me, it was like, wasn't till I think my mom read it and was obsessed with it. And then she handed me the book, and I was maybe like 15, 16, and I went to go give it a shot. And I just remember it was talked about how beautiful Edward was every like 5 minutes. And I was like, okay, like I get it. This is a bit too much. I was like, let's move on and talk about like let's get on with the story here. And like I just felt like there wasn't enough like there was too much ogling Edward and not enough progression for me, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, they're fun books. They definitely are a little dumbed down as far as like fantasy reads that I would recommend normally, but they read to me. They always read a little bit like a fun fan fiction. Like anybody I know could have written those
Oh,
books.
definitely. And like I can definitely see why it would be a fun, nice, like quick turn your brain off and read it
Yeah,
when you don't want a heavy fantasy series or something like that. Like, or if
for
you're
sure.
just getting into reading and stuff as a teenager, like I could definitely see why it's so many people's gateway books because like the writing is simple and accessible. And I
Yes,
think that's what like makes bigger authors like Brandon Sanderson accessible is that like he doesn't use really fancy prose, but he's still, at least in a lot of his first earlier books like Mistborn and stuff, he really managed to draw you in with his explanations without going into poetic detail where you have to try and visualize things that he's being super poetic about, like in Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Like I love his writing style, but like sometimes I want to just be able to sit there and listen to it and not have to listen to every single word and figure out what you mean by different things just to get through a basic chapter of him doing something that's not really super important, that's more character building.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe that's like a little bit where Sarah J. Maas gets knocked down by critics a little bit, because her writing is, I think, very accessible. It was an easy read, but I had told my best friend, since she's the one who recommended these series to me, when I got through like the first book, I was like, I'm really happy that this isn't like overly simplistic. Like there is a lot of thought in the series, and it's well crafted. It's a well crafted story. It's a clever story, and I personally think it's really well written.
Yeah, I think it's a real skill when authors can like choose the best words that they can to describe things instead of trying to be poetic and flowery.
Yes.
And when you do that, it's a skill in itself of making your book accessible, but like fun to read. Because a normal book, where if you were to just make the prose very straightforward, no one's going to want to read it because it's going to read like you're feel like you're reading a like description instead of a story.
Yeah, right.
Have you ever had any negative interactions with any fans of the series, whether it be online or in person?
Not in person. I think when you get into places like Reddit or Instagram or whatever, where, when people are behind a keyboard, they're much more impassioned. I find most people that I've talked to in person about ACOTAR, they like it, but they're not gonna like fight about their opinions for it. But no, I mean, have I had like really heated debates with people online about theories and felt that like some people had really outlandish interpretations of the story that I couldn't get behind? Absolutely. But I don't think, like, in my nature, I'm not that argumentative of a person. So if, you see things differently than I do about this story, I'm probably just going to walk away from the conversation rather than, double down and like duke it out with you. So no, I can't say I've had, super negative interactions. I do think fans, and this has been true. I mean, I've been a fangirl since I'm, 11 years old. Like I was I wrote Harry Potter fan fiction as a kid.
Star
like
Wars
I was
was
just
mine.
like I've just been, in fan spaces and fandom spaces for a really long time. I was a Tumblr girl, and things used to get really intense on that site. And so I think it's just a symptom of like having a really large impassioned fan base, like that you're going to have people who this is their outlet, and they're gonna write essays, they're gonna like fight tooth and nail to like make their points and share their opinions. And I really love that. As much as I do think it can brew up a lot of negativity, I think it's a good thing too. I think it's a great quality that like these works of fiction can inspire that passion in people.
I love it when people can come together because of their mutual loves. And it really sucks when I'm sitting there on Reddit looking for guests and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there watching people fight about like really stupid things, like their opinions on a character and stuff. It's like, that's your personal feeling towards that character. Just because you're attached to them doesn't mean you need to attack another individual because they don't feel the same, or because they came out of the series feeling a different way about them, because that's the great part about it. Like, we have people to talk to about it, and like we should appreciate that other people are enjoying the series, and even if they don't have the same opinions, like as long as they're not shit talking it and telling you you're an idiot for liking it, like respect their opinion.
Exactly. And I think you see that a little bit too. You see shit talkers everywhere, of course, but hopefully in the fan driven forums, there's not as much of that.
I do have Oh, she offered to like supply some trivia questions for Akatar. And then when I explained to her what it was for, she lost it on me and said, I thought I was helping a fan, not somebody who hasn't even started the series and all this other shit.
Wow. Gatekeeping much.
Yeah, and I had produced like questions with AI and they were really bad. And so I was looking for people to like help me fact check them and stuff. And she's like, I don't want anything to do with that. Whoever you had write this is an idiot or something like that. And I was just like, whoa. I was like, okay, well, like I told you it was an AI. So like, like I don't know if she didn't read the post or didn't read my messages or just came in looking for a fight, but it was wild. Everyone else has been so sweet and helpful.
Yeah. I think in general, it's a good place. The subreddits, you definitely like I said, in every fan space, you're going to have people who are there to pick fights, who are there to be contrarians, who are there to be like, you said this one thing about this character and I'm going to focus on that one word you said, instead of like have a constructive debate or anything like that. But for the most part, I think we all just love the series and we're just excited to grasp, whatever tidbits we can about what's coming next. And people love to theorize and like deep dive into the books. They've been out for a while now. So people kind of like pick apart every piece and like, is this a conspiracy? Does this mean something more? Like, are we going to see that in the next book? So it's a fun place.
Yeah, definitely. If I'm going to call out one fandom here quick on the show because out of all the places I've been, the only place I can say has been an overall negative experience. Some of you guys were amazing, but the King Killer Chronicle fans, the guy who came on to the show here, awesome. A couple of you other guys, awesome. Most of you, this is not a compliment. You may think it is, but you are all very unintelligent versions of Quoth, the main character. And yeah, so take of that what you will. And maybe try and be a little bit nicer and not gatekeep your fandom so much, because it's really not gonna like I can see why Patrick Rothfuss is kind of just off of all of his social medias now, because you guys are mean. Like book 3's probably not out because you guys bullied him and he doesn't want to write it.
Yeah, you gotta watch out for that. You don't want to bully the author.
No, and I was pretty negative on the guy for a while, and like I heard like fans were pretty negative to him and shit. But once I got into the like Reddit there, I was like, holy shit, like this is kind of toxic. Like I don't know how like the few nice people I met exist in that Reddit. Like I kind of just left after I met some cool people and was like, hey, well, like I got what I needed out of this Reddit and I don't want it on my feed anymore.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to get into our last question here before I read one quick review of the book and you tell me whether you think it's accurate or full of shit. My last question here for you is, do you have any quick little theories about the future of the series and where you think it's going to go?
I do. I've had enough time on my hands since finishing the 5th book that I've formed some theories. So in the 5th book, we're introduced to this concept of a high king of Prithian, because we've got the high lords that have their 7 territories that they rule over. And the characters are pushing Rhysand to, use his enormous power, because he's kind of more powerful than everybody, to become High King and like rule the entirety of Prythian all by himself. And he hates the idea. But I do think that idea was introduced for a reason. And I think in the next book, what we're going to see, this is my theory, we've got villains on the rise. We've got like another wave of this war coming, and we know that. And I think one of these bad guys is going to try to do exactly that, is going to try to use whatever magic tools they can get their hands on to make themselves High King of Prythian and do away with the courts and the High Lords. And our heroes and our most powerful High Lord in existence, Rhysand, I think he's going to be pushed to claim that title for himself, even though he doesn't want it, just to keep it out of the hands of the villains.
Yeah, I definitely think that's where it's going to. Feel like it's kind of a Chekhov's gun moment when they introduce the concept of him possibly becoming the High King there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's it that I have as far as theories. Like I've got a lot of speculation about like who will Elaine end up with, and there's one more. There's also been talk of like an 8th court. There's the 7 courts of Prythian, and there's talk of this mysterious 8th court that once used to exist. Rhysand mentions it once, like in passing, and I think it's been confirmed that it's called the Dusk Court, or maybe that's just the fan theory. I'm not 100% sure. And so there's a lot of people talking about how that might come into play. And, Nesta has been called a queen since she came out of the cauldron because she's so powerful. So a lot of people are suggesting that, maybe she'll claim the Dusk Court as her own or something like that. So I think something's going to happen with that. I don't know what exactly.
I like it. That's interesting. I can't wait to see if you're correct or not.
Yeah, I'm so excited to find out.
Awesome. So let's get into the review here, and you tell me what you think. Because of time, we're just going to do one today. I usually do 1 to 3 depending on how long the conversation goes, but been a fun little way to end off the show in the last few episodes. So I think it's a segment we're going to skip with. Stick with, not skip with.
Awesome.
So let's get into it. This is from Cindy on Goodreads. I'm going to leave out her update part because I just want the initial review here. This book was 600 plus pages of slog to get through. I understand how people would consider the sequel to be an improvement since the main character shows more agency and certain tropes are reversed, but the development was very on the nose and came at the expense of turning other characters into cartoonish villains. The writing suffered a lot from telling and not showing, especially when it came to the dialogue, where it mostly consisted of the main character asking questions that would result in other fairies answering via several pages of monologues. I'm going to leave it there and let you respond, and then I'll read the last little.
Oh, man. Slog is probably the last word I would use to describe this book. It's like I said, it's one of my favorite books of all time, and I've reread it like 4 times since I read it the first time. To me, it is like the pacing is perfect, and you just move from one big thing to the next, and there's the relationship developments are I'm trying to find the word, kind of intoxicating. Like that's what I found with this book, is that I just like needed to see more of these characters interacting. I think it's really interesting that the criticism is that a lot of it is explained by Feyre asking questions and other people answering them, because she's this human girl who's just become this immortal fairy and has no idea how anything works. So
Right? Like, how else are we supposed to learn about the world
yeah.
if people don't ask questions? Like, yes, you can show things, but like, if people don't talk to each other, you don't have character development either. The
Yeah.
conversations aren't just exposition. You learn about the characters because of their opinions and viewpoints on the world and stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's necessary. We're experiencing this world through Feyre. We don't know anything that she doesn't know. So for me, that wasn't a problem. I noticed that this person like mentioned like cartoonish villains, and so I can kind of guess what they're referring to. And I don't agree. I
Tamlin,
think
right?
they're
I think they
yeah,
mean
I think they're
Tamlin.
referring to the turn in Tamlin's character. And the thing is, I don't think Tamlin's made out to be a cartoonish villain. I think he's a really tragic character who shoots himself in the foot again and again and again in the second book. Like he's dealing with trauma. Feyre's dealing with trauma. They're not communicating. They're both sabotaging their relationship. And he allows his trauma to cause harm to himself and to her. And it becomes a toxic situation, and it doesn't make him a cartoonish villain. If anything, I think it's kind of a realistic representation of what toxicity trauma can cause when it's unaddressed and unresolved. So I know a lot of people don't like the changes that Tamlin's character underwent in that book, but I didn't think they were, out of left field or kind of forced upon him. I thought it was pretty reasonable. And the monologuing, I guess I will say I did notice that I think that's a Sarah J. Maas kind of thing. She does like her informational monologues every now and then. I'm not going to deny that. We get it from a few characters throughout that book. Um, like enough so that it's noticeable, but I didn't think it detracted from the story all that much, especially when you get to Rhysand's epic like confession monologue. It's like 4 pages long, but it's his confession to Feyre about their whole history, and I think it's really well done, honestly. If you have to monologue, I think they did it well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The last part here, quick, says people hype this book up as some trashy erotica, but there were only 2 sex scenes towards the end.
Is that for the second book, the A Court
Yes.
of Mist and Fury? Yeah. I think there's more than 2 sex scenes. Because I remember that book pretty well. And I think there's more than two. But it's the second book, A Court of Mist and Fury, is about Feyre's relationship with Rhysand. So that is like, I mean, as much as there's stuff going on to advance the plot, they're building up to this war that's going to come in the next book. So it's not like, completely focused on that, but it is enough focused on that you're seeing the build up, the chemistry, the sexual tension between these two characters for like hundreds of pages before they finally cross that line together. So I think it's not so much a book that's full of smut as much as it is about the slow burn and the build up and that kind of satisfying, like, they finally did it moment.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's a lot of build up for an emotional payoff. Well,
Yes.
thank you so much for coming on. It has been a blast getting to talk A Court of Thorns and Roses with you.
Thank you. It's been so much fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. And if anybody wants to see more Court of Thorns and Roses content, I have a new podcast coming up called Fandom Face Off, where 2 guests compete in trivia against whatever topic they're both a fan of. The topics that we have coming up in the first batch of episodes are going to be Digimon, Pokemon, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and King Killer Chronicle. So I'm excited to get to bring another show out soon. And if anybody wants to appear on another podcast I'm working on, it's called Hey Anime, and it's a simple little show where people just recommend an anime television show or movie, and I take a little gander at it, and we shoot the shit about it afterwards. If that's something you're interested in, I'd love to hear from you. Hope everyone has a great day, and see you next week. Thanks for listening. If you like the show, make sure you follow us and rate 5 stars and share it with all your friends. If you'd like to be a guest, email us at pod.fandoms@gmail.com, or you can message us on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, or Reddit. You can also join our Discord to chat with other fans, suggest questions for upcoming episodes, or find out about our new shows dropping soon. If you want to be super deadly, you can join our Patreon as well. Thanks for all your support. See you next time.